She was 9 months pregnant, locked in a dog cage in her own garage, in the dark, alone. Her husband had just taken photos of her screaming in labor and texted them to his girlfriend. Then he turned off the lights, walked out, and drove to his mistress's apartment. But here is what he did not know. His wife was not crying in that cage. She was scratching a message into the metal floor with her diamond wedding ring. She was leaving evidence. She was naming her unborn son. And 6,000 miles away, a phone was about to ring in a military base in Germany. Her brother had made her a promise before the wedding. You call me and I will come. She never called. But she had a backup plan, a tray of cookies, a note taped to the bottom, and an elderly neighbor who had been counting the days. What happened next will make you cry, scream, and cheer. This is the story of Emily Hartwell, and by the end, you will never forget her name. Value statement. This story is more than drama. It is a survival guide hidden inside a narrative. It teaches you the warning signs of a controlling relationship. It shows you how isolation works, how abusers think, and most importantly, how one woman fought back with nothing but her intelligence and the people who refused to give up on her. If this story helps even one person recognize the signs and reach out for help, then every word was worth it. Now, before we begin, do me a favor. If you believe that stories like this need to be told, hit that like button right now. Subscribe if you have not already, and turn on notifications so you never miss one of these, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from tonight. I read every single one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life a story might save. Now, let us go back to the very beginning. The garage was pitch black. The only sounds were her breathing and the steady drip of something wet hitting concrete. Emily Hartwell pressed her forehead against the cold metal bars and tried to count the seconds between contractions. She had stopped being able to count somewhere around the 5th hour. Or was it the 6th? Time had dissolved into a cycle of agony and silence. Agony and silence, with nothing in between but the dark. She was 29 years old. She was 9 months pregnant, and she was locked inside a dog cage in her own garage, while her husband drove across town to spend the night with his girlfriend. A contraction seized her body, and she screamed. The sound bounced off the concrete walls and came back to her like a mockery. Nobody heard. Nobody was coming. The nearest neighbor was 50 yards away behind a privacy fence. And the garage was insulated because Brandon had wanted a quiet space to work on his cars. He had thought of everything. He always thought of everything. When the pain released its grip, Emily pressed both hands against her swollen belly and spoke to her baby. Her voice was raw, barely a whisper. Listen to me. Your name is Elijah. It means God is my strength. I am naming you right now, tonight, in this cage. Because you deserve a name. You deserve to know that your mama wanted you from the very first moment. And if we make it out of here, when we make it out of here, I will never stop fighting for you. That is my promise. That is my promise to you, Elijah. Another contraction hit. She bit down on her own arm to keep from screaming, because the screaming made her throat raw, and she needed her voice. She needed to be able to call for help, if help ever came. When it passed, she did something she had been planning since the moment the cage door slammed shut. She pulled the wedding ring off her finger. 2 carats, princess cut, platinum band. The ring he had put on her hand in front of her family, while he promised to love and protect her forever. The ring that represented every lie he had ever told. She pressed the edge of the diamond against the metal floor of the cage and began to scratch, letter by letter, in total darkness, using nothing but touch and fury and the desperate need to leave evidence in case she did not survive this night. Be Randondidithis. The diamond cut into the metal with a thin, high scraping sound. Each letter took her nearly a minute because her hands were shaking and the contractions kept interrupting her work. But she kept going. Tellyan. Her brother. 6,000 miles away in Germany. The only person on Earth she trusted completely. The only person Brandon had never been able to neutralize because Ryan had seen through him from the very beginning. Iloveyouyelija-ish. She set the ring down on the cage floor beside her. Her finger was raw and bleeding where the band had pressed into swollen skin. She did not care. She had turned his lie into her truth. She had turned his symbol of ownership into a tool of evidence. And if she died tonight, someone would find this message and know exactly what happened in this garage. Emily Hartwell was not going to die silent. But before we get to how she survived that night, you need to understand how she ended up in that cage. And to understand that, you need to understand the man who put her there. Because Brandon Mercer did not become a monster overnight. He built the trap slowly, carefully, beautifully, and Emily walked right into it with her eyes wide open and her heart full of hope. This is her story from the very beginning, 9 months earlier. The Children's Literacy Foundation annual gala was the kind of event Emily Hartwell would never have attended on her own. Black tie, downtown Atlanta, champagne that cost more per glass than she spent on groceries in a week, crystal chandeliers, and men in suits that probably cost more than her car. She was there because Principal Henderson at Riverside Elementary had asked her to go. The foundation was considering a grant for their after-school reading program, the one Emily ran 3 afternoons a week for kids who were falling behind. Emily had written the grant application herself, staying up until 2 in the morning at her kitchen table, pouring everything she had into describing these children and why they mattered. Principal Henderson had said, "Someone from the school should be there to represent us. You wrote the application. You know these kids better than anyone. Go shake some hands." So Emily borrowed a dress from her best friend, Jess. A simple navy blue thing that was slightly too tight in the shoulders but looked elegant enough in dim lighting. She drove her 2014 Honda Civic to the valet line, felt embarrassed handing over the keys next to a row of Mercedes and BMWs, and walked inside, holding a clutch purse that contained her driver's license, $42 in cash, and a lipstick she had bought at the drugstore that morning. She was nervous, out of her element. She stood near the bar holding a glass of sparkling water because she could not afford the champagne, and she watched the room full of wealthy donors work their magic. Handshakes and laughter and the easy confidence of people who had never worried about whether their checking account could cover the electric bill. She did not know that someone was watching her. Brandon Mercer had been watching Emily for 20 minutes before he approached. He stood near the east wall with a whiskey in his hand, studying her the way a hunter studies the movement patterns of prey. He noticed that she was alone. He noticed that she was uncomfortable. He noticed that she was not networking or flirting or trying to be seen. She was just standing there, genuinely present, radiating the kind of quiet kindness that made her look like the only real person in a room full of performances. Brandon Mercer was 34 years old. He owned Mercer Logistics, a mid-sized shipping and freight company that cleared $2 million a year in revenue. He was tall, athletic, clean-cut, country club handsome, the kind of man who walked into a room and owned it without raising his voice. Everyone loved Brandon. His clients trusted him. His employees respected him. His mother adored him. And he was a predator. Not the kind you see in crime documentaries, with wild eyes and dirty clothes, the kind that wears a tailored suit and donates $25,000 to children's literacy foundations and quotes scripture about marriage and looks you directly in the eye while he lies to your face. The most dangerous kind, the kind you never see coming. He approached Emily with surgical precision. He did not lead with money or status or any of the things that would have made a cautious woman suspicious. He led with purpose. You must be from Riverside Elementary. I read about your tutoring program in the grant application. The way you described those kids, I could tell whoever wrote that actually cares. That was not fundraising language. That was love. Emily was caught off guard. You read the grant application? Every word. That is why I am donating to it personally. Those kids deserve someone who fights for them. They talked for 2 hours. Brandon asked about her work, her dreams, her students. He listened, really listened. He nodded at the right moments, asked follow-up questions that showed he had been paying attention, remembered the names of the children she mentioned. He told her about growing up with a single mother. This was a half-truth. His mother, Catherine, had money, old money, country club money, but Brandon framed his childhood as humble. He told her about building his company from nothing. This was an exaggeration. His mother had given him a $200,000 loan to get started, but the story sounded good. It sounded real. It sounded like a man who had earned everything he had. There were signs, small ones, the kind you only recognize in hindsight. When Emily mentioned that her older brother, Ryan, was in the military, stationed in Germany with the 3rd Infantry Division, Brandon's smile flickered for half a second, just a flash, the kind of micro-expression that a trained interrogator would catch but a trusting woman at a charity gala would miss. He did not like that she had a protector. He recovered instantly. That is amazing. You must be so proud of him. When Emily talked about her independence, about loving her little apartment and her job and the life she had built for herself on a teacher's aide salary, Brandon said something that sounded romantic but was actually a test. I admire that. But do not you think everyone deserves someone to take care of them? Emily smiled. Maybe. If the right person comes along. Brandon smiled back. Maybe he already has. At the end of the night, Emily gave him her number. She walked to her Honda Civic in the parking garage and called Jess. I just met someone. He is different. Jess, who had known Emily since freshman year of high school and loved her like a sister, said what Jess always said. Different how? He actually listened to me. Like really listened. Like he cared about what I was saying. Every con man in history was a great listener. That is literally how it works. You are so cynical. I am realistic. But fine, give him a chance. Just promise me you will keep your eyes open. I promise. She did not keep that promise. The courtship was a textbook love-bombing campaign. Emily did not know the term. She would not learn it until much later, in a therapist's office, when she finally had the language to describe what had been done to her. Week 1. Good morning texts and good night texts every single day, without fail. Flowers delivered to the school. A handwritten note tucked into the bouquet. Those kids are lucky to have you. So am I. Week 2. Dinner at a restaurant downtown with cloth napkins and candlelight and a wine list thicker than a novel. Brandon ordered for her without asking. Trust me, you will love the Chilean sea bass. She did love it. She also did not notice that he had not asked what she wanted. Week 3. He showed up at the school during lunch and brought food for the entire staff. Catered trays from a nice restaurant. Everyone loved him. Principal Henderson pulled Emily aside and said, "That man is a keeper, Emily. Do not let that one go." Brandon had now infiltrated her workplace. Her colleagues thought he was wonderful. Anyone who might later notice something wrong had already been primed to defend him. Month 2. He met her father, Tom Hartwell, a retired electrician in Macon. Brought a bottle of good bourbon and sat on the porch talking football for 3 hours. Tom called Emily afterward. That boy has got a good head on his shoulders. Your mama would have liked him. Month 3. He told her he loved her. They were sitting on the back porch of his house at Meadowbrook Heights, an upscale suburban development with manicured lawns and 3-car garages and neighbors who waved but did not ask questions. He took her hand and looked into her eyes. I have never said this to anyone and meant it, but I love you, Emily. Not the idea of you. You. The woman who stays late to help a 7-year-old learn to read. The woman who borrows a dress for a gala because she would rather spend money on school supplies. You are the most real person I have ever met. Emily cried. She had never been loved like this, or so she thought. Month 6. Sunday brunch at Catherine Mercer's townhouse. Catherine was warm, gracious, perfectly welcoming. She hugged Emily, said all the right things. Brandon has told me so much about you. I can already tell you are exactly what he needs. Later, when Emily excused herself to use the restroom, Catherine pulled Brandon into the kitchen. Her voice dropped to a whisper, but her words were precise. She is sweet, manageable, good choice. Just make sure she does not think she has options. She will not, Mother. Your father made the same mistake once. Let me think I had a say. It took years to correct that. Do not repeat his errors. Establish the rules early. Month 8. Thanksgiving. Brandon proposed in front of Emily's entire family. 1 knee. A 2-carat princess, cut ring on a platinum band. Everyone applauded. Aunts cried. Tom Hartwell shook Brandon's hand with tears in his eyes. You take care of my baby girl. Brandon looked Tom directly in the eye. Sir, I promise I will protect her with my life. 2 weeks before the wedding, Ryan came home on leave. He had not spent much time with Brandon. A few dinners, a family barbecue, some polite conversation. But Ryan Hartwell had spent 12 years in the United States Army. He had been trained to read people. He had interrogated men who sold weapons to warlords, and every single one of them had been charming. Every single one of them made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Ryan knew the difference between warmth and performance, and something about Brandon Mercer set off every alarm in his body. He pulled Emily into the kitchen while everyone celebrated in the living room. Emily, I need to talk to you about Brandon. Ryan, please do not start. I am not starting anything. I am asking. Do you really know this man? I know him better than I have ever known anyone. You have known him less than a year, and Daddy proposed to Mama after 6 months. You going to tell me that was not real? Ryan's jaw tightened. He looked at his sister and saw something he recognized from combat. A person so committed to a belief that no amount of evidence would change their mind. He had seen it in soldiers who refused to acknowledge an ambush until the bullets were already flying. He had seen it in civilians who stayed in their homes while the bombs fell because they could not accept that their world was ending. He tried one more time. Emily, listen to me. If something ever happens, anything, you call me. I do not care where I am or what I am doing. You call me and I will come. Do you understand? Emily rolled her eyes. You are being dramatic. Promise me. Fine. I promise. She meant it in the moment. The way you mean promises, you believe you will never have to keep. The wedding was small, intimate, and beautiful. Brandon cried when Emily walked down the aisle. His vows included a line that made everyone smile. You are mine now, Emily, and I protect what is mine. Everyone thought it was romantic. Ryan did not smile. He sat in the second row and watched Brandon Mercer's eyes and saw something that made his stomach turn. Possession, not love. Possession. That night, in the honeymoon suite, Brandon held Emily close and whispered into her hair, "You are mine now, forever." She smiled against his chest. She thought it was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to her. She did not understand yet that those words were not a promise of love. They were a declaration of ownership, and the cage was already being built around her. The changes started small. So small that Emily did not recognize them as changes at all. They felt like love. They felt like a man taking care of his wife, providing for her, wrapping her in comfort and security. It was only later, when she could see the full picture, that she understood each small change was a bar being welded into place around her life. Month 2 of the marriage. A Tuesday evening. Emily came home from Riverside Elementary exhausted and excited. One of her students, a boy named Marcus, who had been struggling with reading for 2 years, had finally read an entire chapter book on his own. Emily had cried. Marcus had cried. It was the kind of moment that reminded her why she did this work. She walked in the door, glowing, and found Brandon sitting at the dining table with dinner already served, candles lit. Her favorite meal, grilled salmon and roasted vegetables. "Baby, sit down. I want to talk to you about something." She sat. He poured her water, took her hand across the table. "I have been thinking." "Why are you still working? What do you mean?" "I mean, you are my wife now. I make more than enough for both of us. You come home stressed and tired every day. That is not what I want for you, but I love my job. I know you do, and that is one of the things I love about you. But think about it. We are going to start a family soon. Would it not be better if you could focus on our home, on us, on building the life we have always talked about?" He squeezed her hand. "Let me take care of you, Emily. That is what a husband is supposed to do." Emily thought about it. She talked to Jess, who laughed and said, "Girl, if my man could afford to let me stay home, I would quit tomorrow." She talked to her aunt, who said, "That is what marriage is supposed to look like, sweetheart." She did not talk to Ryan because he was back in Germany, and communication was sporadic with the time difference and training schedule. Emily gave her 2 weeks' notice. Principal Henderson was disappointed but understanding. "Those kids will miss you, Emily. You are irreplaceable." Emily cried in her car in the parking lot on her last day, but she told herself it was temporary. She would go back someday, after the baby, after things settled down. But that night, alone in the house, while Brandon worked late, Emily did something she could not fully explain. She opened her laptop and went through the process of renewing her teaching certification. She printed the paperwork, filled it out, and hid it inside a cookbook on the kitchen shelf. A thick cookbook she never used, one her mother had given her years ago. She did not know why she did this. Some instinct, some quiet voice in the back of her mind that whispered, "Keep this, just in case." Small act of rebellion. Number 1. 3 weeks later, Brandon suggested consolidating their bank accounts. Everything in one place, easier to manage, more efficient. "What about my savings?" Emily asked. "Transfer it over." "We are married, Emily. What is mine is yours." She transferred $8,700, her entire savings. Everything she had built on a teacher's aide salary over 6 years of careful budgeting. He gave her a credit card with a $200 limit. Anything over $50 required his approval. He framed it as financial planning. "We need to be smart about spending, baby. I am thinking about our future." But Emily started hiding cash. $5 from the grocery change here, $10 from a purchase. She rounded down on the receipt there. She tucked the bills inside a thick novel on the bookshelf. Gone with the Wind, her mother's copy. The pages were yellowed and the spine was cracked, and Brandon would never touch it, because Brandon did not read fiction. Over the following weeks, she accumulated $340. Not enough to escape, but enough to feel like she had a secret, a tiny piece of herself that belonged only to her. Small act of rebellion. Number 2. Month 4. Emily woke up on a Wednesday morning and looked out the bedroom window at the driveway. Her 2014 Honda Civic was gone. She found Brandon in the kitchen, drinking coffee. "Where's my car?" "I sold it." "You what?" "I sold it. You do not need 2 cars. You are home all day. When you need to go somewhere, you can use the Mercedes. I already added you to the insurance. But you did not ask me. Did not think I needed to. It was depreciating. I got a good price. Put the money toward the house fund." He kissed her forehead. "Trust me. I am thinking about our future." Emily felt something twist in her stomach. A feeling she could not name. Not anger exactly. Something deeper. Something that felt like the ground shifting beneath her feet. But she pushed it down because this was her husband and he loved her and he was just being practical. Looking back, she would identify that feeling. It was the moment her subconscious understood what her conscious mind refused to accept. She was being erased, one piece at a time. The job was gone, the money was gone, the car was gone, and the people were next. It started with Jess. Brandon had never liked Jess. He found her loud and opinionated and too close to Emily. Jess called wanting to meet for lunch. Brandon overheard and shook his head. "Jess? The one who is always jumping from guy to guy?" "Baby, you are who you surround yourself with. Married women need married friends." Emily canceled. Then she canceled again the following week. Then again. Jess drove to the house. Brandon answered the door. He did not open it all the way. He blocked the entrance with his body and spoke in a tone that was friendly on the surface and ice underneath. "Emily does not want to see you, Jess. She is in a different chapter of her life now. I think you should respect that." Jess looked past his shoulder. She could see Emily standing in the hallway. Their eyes met. Emily mouthed the words, "I am okay," but her eyes said the opposite. Jess left. She drove 3 blocks, pulled over, and sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. Something was wrong. She knew it in her bones. But what could she do? Emily was a grown woman. She had chosen this man. She had said she was okay. That night, Jess started a journal. She wrote down the date, the time, and exactly what had happened. Brandon answered the door. Would not let me in? Emily looked thin. Emily looked scared. Emily mouthed, "I am okay," but her eyes said something different. She did not know what the journal was for. Not yet. She just knew she needed to document what she was seeing because someday someone might need to know. Over the next 2 months, the same thing happened with Emily's cousin, her church group, her book club. Brandon always had a reason, always delivered gently, lovingly, wrapped in concern. Your cousin is jealous of what we have. That church group gossips about everyone. You do not need that negativity. Book club meets on Thursday nights. That is our night. Within 6 months of the wedding, Emily Hartwell had no friends, no colleagues, no support system, and no way to contact the outside world without Brandon knowing. He had changed her phone passcode. He had installed a tracking app. He had told her it was for safety, so he always knew where she was in case of an emergency. She memorized Dorothy Miller's phone number. Dot was the elderly woman who lived next door. 68 years old, widowed, Southern to her bones. The kind of woman who sat on her back porch every afternoon drinking sweet tea and reading paperbacks and noticing things. Dot waved at Emily every morning through the fence. Sometimes they exchanged a few words about the weather or the azaleas. Emily never called the number. She was too afraid, but she locked it in her memory the way a prisoner memorizes the guard schedule. Just in case. Small act of rebellion. Number 3, month 7, a Tuesday afternoon. Emily realized she had not left the house in 4 days. She tried the front door. Locked. Key only from the inside. She tried the back door. Same. The garage door required a code she did not have. Every first-floor window had security locks that required a key. She tried to break a window with a table lamp. Reinforced glass. The lamp bounced off without leaving a scratch. Brandon had replaced all the windows on the first floor the month before the wedding. He had told her it was for energy efficiency. When Brandon came home that evening, he looked at the lamp on the floor beneath the window and said nothing for a long time. Then he walked upstairs and came back down, carrying the mattress from their bed. He dragged it to the guest room and locked the door. You sleep on the floor tonight. Maybe discomfort will teach you not to destroy my property. Emily lay on the cold hardwood floor of the bedroom in the beautiful 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house with granite countertops and an oak tree in the backyard and security cameras covering every angle of the property, and she understood. The house was the cage. It had been the cage all along. The dog cage. In the garage. The one she had glimpsed under a tarp when she helped Brandon carry in groceries, that was just the smaller version. The honest version. The one without the granite countertops and the pretty wallpaper. She put her hand flat on the hardwood floor and felt the cold seep into her palm, and she told herself that she was going to survive this. She did not know how. She did not have a plan, but she was going to survive. Emily discovered she was pregnant on a Thursday morning in October. She sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the positive test, and felt two emotions collide inside her chest, like cars at an intersection. Joy, pure, overwhelming, biological joy. The kind that makes your hands shake, and your eyes fill, and your heart expand until it feels too big for your ribs. And terror, because she was trapped in a house with a man who controlled every aspect of her existence. And now there was going to be a baby. She told Brandon at dinner she had made his favorite, steak, medium rare, baked potato, green beans. She set the test on the table beside his plate. He picked it up, looked at it. His face went completely blank. You are pregnant. Yes, baby, we are going to have a baby. He stood up without a word, walked out of the room. She heard the garage door open and close. 20 minutes passed. She sat at the table with her dinner getting cold and her heart hammering and her hand on her belly where a life the size of a sesame seed was just beginning to form. He came back, stood in the kitchen doorway. His face had rearranged itself into something she almost recognized as concern but was actually calculation. Are you sure it is mine? The question hit her like a physical blow. She actually recoiled. How could you even say that? I have not been anywhere. I have not seen anyone. You know exactly where I am every minute of every day. Do not get emotional. I am being logical. That night, Emily could not sleep. She lay on the bedroom floor, which Brandon had still not returned the mattress to, and stared at the ceiling. Around midnight, she heard Brandon on the phone downstairs. His voice was low, but sound travels in a quiet house, and Emily crept to the top of the stairs and listened. Yeah, she is pregnant. I know. It is a complication. Pause. No. Listen to me. After the baby comes, I will figure something out. Maybe she will have complications. Maybe we can work something out. I just need you to trust me. Pause. Yes, I love you. You are the only one? Well, love. She was just convenient. A placeholder, but you are everything. Emily's blood turned to ice. Every cell in her body went still. There was another woman. There had always been another woman. Emily had never been the love story. She had been the cover story, the respectable wife, the domestic backdrop for a man who needed to look stable and married for his business, while his real life happened somewhere else. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. She wanted to call Ryan and tell him everything and beg him to come get her. But there was nothing to scream into, no one to run to, no phone to call with. Brandon had taken her phone 2 days ago and had not returned it. The landline was dead. The computer was password protected. The front door was locked. The back door was locked. Every window was sealed. Emily stood in the middle of the living room of her beautiful prison and put her hands on her belly and understood, completely and finally, that she was trapped. She tried to call Ryan the next day when Brandon briefly returned her phone to make a grocery order. She dialed the international number with shaking fingers. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. She hung up because she could not explain everything in a voicemail message. And if Brandon checked the call log, she would pay for it. She tried the day after that. Same result. Ryan was on a training rotation. He had told her before the wedding that there would be times when he could not be reached for days. She had not thought it would matter. It mattered now. The weeks after that phone call were the loneliest of Emily's life. Brandon was gone more often. Sometimes 2 days, sometimes 3. He came home smelling like perfume that was not hers. He did not ask about the pregnancy, did not touch her belly, did not look at her with anything resembling love or even interest. He left food in the refrigerator. Enough for a few days, but nothing extra. If she ate too much, less appeared the next time. You are getting fat. Baby weight is one thing, but you are letting yourself go. He controlled the thermostat, set it to 58 degrees before leaving for long weekends. In February, in Atlanta, cold enough that Emily could see her breath in the bedroom, the first prenatal appointment. Brandon promised to come. Emily got dressed, put on makeup for the first time in weeks, and waited by the locked front door. He did not show. He called from somewhere with music and laughter in the background. I cannot drop everything for an appointment, Emily. You are a grown woman. She called an Uber, using the credit card he had temporarily reactivated. The ride cost $32. She felt guilty the entire way, not because of the money, but because she knew he would see the charge, and she would have to explain it. And explanations always ended with punishment. At the doctor's office, the ultrasound technician spread warm gel on her belly and moved the wand across her skin, and suddenly the room filled with a sound that Emily would remember for the rest of her life. A heartbeat, fast and strong and impossibly alive. The technician smiled. There is your baby, looking healthy. Good, strong heartbeat. The nurse asked, Is Dad coming? He had to work. The nurse's expression softened in a way that told Emily she had heard that answer before. Many times. Emily took the printout home, showed it to Brandon that evening. He glanced at it for less than a second. That is nice. He went back to his phone. Emily stood in the kitchen holding the ultrasound image of her child and watched her husband scroll through text messages from another woman and felt something shift inside her. Not hope, not strength. Something quieter than that. Something that felt like a decision being made in a room she could not yet access. She was still fighting, quietly, in ways Brandon could not see. She found a pregnancy book at the back of the guest room closet, one she had bought months ago before things got bad. She hid it under the mattress in the guest bedroom and read it at night when Brandon was away. She did prenatal exercises in the living room. She ate as well as she could with the food he left. And she studied the house. Every camera, every angle, every blind spot. She mapped the security system in her mind the way her brother had taught her to map terrain during their childhood games in the woods behind their house in Macon. Find the gaps, Em. There is always a gap. She found one. The corner of the backyard near the old oak tree. The branches blocked the security camera's view completely. A triangle of space, maybe 6 feet by 4 feet, where she could stand without being recorded. She noted it, filed it, waited. One afternoon, Brandon forgot to lock his phone before setting it on the kitchen counter. He walked to the bathroom. Emily heard the door close. She had 30 seconds, maybe 40. She did not call 911. Brandon would hear. She did not call Ryan. She could not explain everything in 40 seconds. She called Catherine, her mother-in-law. Because surely his own mother would help. Surely the woman who had hugged her at brunch and called her family would not let her grandchild's mother be treated like this. Catherine. It is Emily, please. I need help. Brandon is hurting me. I am pregnant and I am scared. He has locked me in the house. I cannot leave. I cannot call anyone. Please. Silence on the line. Emily could hear Catherine breathing, could hear the television playing softly in the background, could hear the sound of a woman deciding how much of the truth she was willing to acknowledge. Emily. Every marriage has rough patches. This is not a rough patch. He is... Brandon's father was the same way. Strong-willed, demanding. It took me years to learn how to manage it, but I did, and our marriage lasted 42 years. You need to stop provoking him. A wife's job is to make her husband's life easier, not harder. Catherine, I am not provoking him. He is... I am going to hang up now, Emily, and I think you should think very carefully about what kind of wife you want to be. The line went dead. That night, Brandon took the phone. Permanently, because Catherine had called him the moment she hung up. Your wife called me. She is being dramatic. You need to get that phone situation under control. Emily sat in the dark bedroom and put her hands on her belly and felt her baby move for the first time, a tiny flutter, like a butterfly trapped behind glass. And she thought about Dorothy Miller. Next door, behind the fence, in the blind spot by the oak tree, and she began to form a plan. But first, Emily tried one more thing. One more desperate attempt to reach the outside world. And it almost worked. Almost. She found an envelope in the kitchen drawer, a pen, paper, and she wrote a letter that would break your heart if you read it. 3 pages. Everything. The isolation, the locked doors, the cameras, the food rationing, the cold, the phone calls to another woman, the fear. She begged Jess to call Ryan. She begged her to call the police. She stuffed the $340 of hidden cash into the envelope because Jess would need it to make calls, buy a bus ticket, something, anything. Brandon had left for work and forgotten to relock the garage door. Emily walked through their garage, down the driveway, and placed the letter in the mailbox. She raised the little red flag. The mail carrier came at 2:15 in the afternoon. Brandon would not be home until 6. She had time. For 3 days, Emily felt something she had not felt in months. Hope. The letter was gone. The mail carrier had taken it. Help was coming. Jess would read it and call Ryan, and Ryan would come, and this nightmare would finally end. On the 4th day, Brandon came home early. He walked through the front door holding the envelope. Unopened. Emily's legs gave out. She grabbed the kitchen counter to keep from falling. The Ring doorbell does not cover the mailbox, but the motion sensor camera I installed on the garage eave last month does. I watched you walk that envelope out on my phone, called the post office, intercepted it before it left the local branch. Benefits of being a known businessman in the community. He opened the letter, read it aloud in a mocking voice that turned her desperation into entertainment. He counted the hidden cash. $340. That is what your freedom is worth to you? That is actually kind of sad, Emily. He burned the letter in the kitchen sink, pocketed the cash. Then he grabbed her arm, hard, hard enough that she felt the bone compress, hard enough that a bruise began forming before he even let go. He looked at the bruise on her skin with an expression that was not anger or guilt, but satisfaction, like a craftsman inspecting his work. See what you made me do? If you had just behaved, I would not have to correct you. Emily lay in bed that night, rubbing the bruise on her arm with one hand and cradling her belly with the other. Every escape route she had tried had led back to him. The phone call to Catherine, the letter to Jess. Every way out was sealed, but she did not break. Not all the way, because the plan was still forming. The oak tree, the blind spot, the neighbor, the phone number she had memorized months ago, Dorothy Miller, Grammy Dot, the woman who noticed everything from her porch. 3 weeks after Brandon intercepted the letter, Emily was cleaning the guest bedroom. It was one of her daily tasks. Brandon expected the house spotless, every surface dusted, every floor swept, every room inspection ready, as if he were running a barracks rather than a home. She opened the nightstand drawer to dust inside it and found something. A single earring, gold hoop. Small, delicate, expensive, not her style, not anything she had ever owned. She showed it to Brandon that evening, holding it up between two fingers like a question mark. Whose earring is this? Brandon barely looked at it. Previous owners. House was staged when I bought it. Probably fell behind the drawer. Emily accepted the explanation, put the earring back, moved on. But here's what she did not know. That earring did not belong to any previous owner. It did not belong to Megan Cross either. It belonged to a woman named Tasha Kincaid, a woman Brandon had been seeing for 8 months. A woman he texted the same words he texted Megan. Baby, you are the only one. She means nothing to me. The earring had fallen from Tasha's ear on a night she spent in the Mercer guest bedroom while Emily was locked in the master bedroom upstairs. Emily had been 12 feet above her husband's other woman and had not known it. That earring was a time bomb, and it would detonate at exactly the right moment, but not yet. 3 days later, Emily heard a car pull up to the house. The doorbell rang. Brandon was supposedly at a job site. He had left the front door unlocked because he was coming back within the hour to pick up a briefcase he had forgotten. Emily opened the door. A woman stood on the porch. Early 30s, brunette, beautiful, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than Emily's entire wardrobe. She drove a BMW. She stood with the confidence of a woman who believed she owned the world and everyone in it. She looked Emily up and down, the kind of look that starts at the swollen belly and ends at the unwashed hair and makes its judgment in between. So, you are the wife. Who are you? I am Megan Cross. I am the woman your husband actually loves. I have been with him for 3 years, before you, during you, and I will be here long after you. Emily's legs went weak. She reached for the doorframe to steady herself. This was the voice from the phone call. The voice that had said she was a placeholder, a convenience. Megan walked inside without being invited. She moved through the house, touching furniture, running her fingers along surfaces, commenting on the decor like a buyer at an open house. He told me about the baby. That was unfortunate. He never wanted children. I made sure of that on my end. I am smart enough to know a baby is a chain, not a blessing. Get out of my house. Megan laughed. Your house? Honey, this is Brandon's house. You are just staying in it, temporarily. Then she saw something, the thick copy of Gone with the Wind on the bookshelf. She picked it up and flipped through it casually, the way a bored person pages through a magazine. The remaining bills Emily had saved again, $87 tucked between pages, fluttered to the floor. Megan raised an eyebrow, looked at the money on the ground, looked at Emily. Squirreling away escape money? That is adorable. Please. Emily's voice cracked. Please do not tell him. Megan bent down and collected the bills. She straightened up and looked at Emily, and for 1 second, something crossed her face. She saw the bruise on Emily's arm, faded to yellow, but still visible. She saw the hollow eyes, the pregnant belly straining against a shirt that was too small because Brandon had not bought her maternity clothes, the bare feet because Brandon had taken her shoes after the last escape attempt. Something flickered in Megan's eyes. Recognition, pity, maybe even a flash of fear. A thought that whispered from somewhere deep in her subconscious, this could be me. Then it was gone, buried under 3 years of lies and ego and the desperate need to believe she was different. She was special. She was the one he really loved. You should have picked a better man, Megan said. She walked out with the money. That night, Brandon knew everything. Megan had called him before she even reached the end of the driveway. He came home calm, controlled, the most dangerous version of himself. He went to the garage. Emily heard metal scraping across concrete. He came back dragging the dog cage into the living room. It was enormous, built for dogs, over 100 pounds, heavy gauge steel. A padlock hanging from the door. He set it in front of the couch where Emily was sitting and opened the cage door. The hinges creaked. You see this? My German shepherds used to sleep in here. Beautiful dogs, obedient, loyal. They never tried to run because they understood where they belonged. He let the silence do its work. Let her stare into the dark interior of the cage. Let her imagine herself inside it. If you ever try to hide money from me again, try to contact anyone, try to leave, this is where you sleep. Not the bedroom, not the floor. This, do you understand? She nodded. Say it. I understand. Good girl. He dragged the cage back to the garage. Emily sat frozen on the couch with her hand on her belly and realized that he had just told her the ending. He had just shown her his plan. He meant to put her in that cage, not as a threat, as a promise, but in showing her, he had also given her information. And Emily filed that information away because that is what survivors do. They collect data. They map the terrain. They find the gaps. She went to the backyard the next day, stood in the blind spot by the oak tree, and whispered through the fence, Dot, it is Emily, from next door. She heard a chair creak, footsteps on a wooden porch. Then Dot Miller's face appeared at the fence. 68 years old, widowed, sharp-eyed, kind-hearted, the kind of woman who had lived long enough to recognize trouble when she saw it. Honey, what is wrong? Dot, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I cannot explain everything right now, but I need you to remember a phone number. Can you do that? Of course I can. If I disappear, if you do not see me for more than 2 days, I need you to call this number. Tell the man who answers that his sister needs him. Tell him to come immediately. Can you remember that? Honey, let me call the police right now. I can see you are... No. Emily's voice was fierce, despite the whisper. If you call the police, he will know. And he will hurt me before they get here. Please, Dot. Just the number. Just remember the number. Emily recited Ryan's phone number. Dot repeated it 3 times. Then Emily did something brilliant. She baked a tray of cookies. She had done this before. Handed treats to Dot over the fence. The cameras had recorded it multiple times. It looked normal. Routine. Just a neighbor being neighborly. But this time, taped to the bottom of the tray, was a folded note. Ryan's number, Emily's full name, and 1 sentence. My husband is holding me prisoner. If something happens to me, this man is my brother. Call him. Dot took the tray, felt the paper taped underneath, looked at Emily through the fence with eyes that said, I understand. Brandon reviewed the camera footage that evening. He saw Emily handing cookies to the neighbor. He thought nothing of it. That tray of cookies was the most important thing Emily Hartwell ever made. Month 8 of pregnancy, 3 weeks before the due date, Brandon had become careless, not because he was less cruel, but because he was distracted. Megan Cross had become more demanding. She wanted more of his time, more of his attention, more evidence that she was the priority. He left for a business trip on a Friday morning, really a long weekend in Savannah with Megan. He kissed Emily's forehead on the way out the door like a man leaving for a normal day at the office. Be good. I will be back Monday. He walked to his car, drove away, and forgot to lock the back door. Emily discovered this at 6:17 in the morning. She stood in the kitchen, staring at the back door handle, and her hand was shaking so badly she could barely grip it. She turned it. The door opened. Cool morning air flooded in. She moved fast, grabbed shoes, the only pair he had not taken, old sneakers from the back of the closet, a jacket. She did not pack anything else, did not take food or water or a change of clothes. Every second she spent inside the house was a second she might lose. She walked through the backyard, through the gate, also unlocked. She was outside. For the first time in months, she stood on a public sidewalk and breathed air that was not trapped inside the walls of her prison. The sun was coming up. The sky was pink and gold, and the air smelled like wet grass and car exhaust and freedom. She walked. 8 months pregnant, she waddled more than walked, but she was moving. 1 block, 2, 3. She did not know where she was going. She just knew she was going away. 5 blocks from the house, a car pulled up beside her. Brandon's Mercedes. He rolled down the window. His face was calm, relaxed, almost amused. Emily's entire body went cold. He was not in Savannah. He had never been going to Savannah. He had left the doors unlocked on purpose, parked his car around the corner, sat in the driver's seat watching the tracking app on the phone he had returned to her the week before. An act she had thought was kindness, but was actually a leash. Get in the car, Emily. No. He did not raise his voice. He did not get out of the car. He spoke quietly, casually, the way you might tell someone the time. Get in the car, now. Across the street, a man was walking a golden retriever. A jogger passed on the sidewalk. Cars drove by. People existed. Normal life was happening 20 feet away. Help was right there. Emily opened her mouth to scream. Brandon spoke before the sound could leave her throat. If you say one word, I will have you committed. I know a psychiatrist. I have been documenting your episodes for months. Paranoid delusions, violent outbursts, suicidal ideation. I have text messages. I have a journal. I have photographs of the broken window and the lamp you threw. By the time I am done, no judge in Georgia will let you near that baby. You will never hold your child, ever. Do you understand what I am telling you? The man with the golden retriever walked past. He glanced at the Mercedes, at the pregnant woman on the sidewalk, and smiled. Good morning. Beautiful day. Emily got in the car. Back at the house, Brandon moved with the efficiency of a man who had planned for this exact scenario. He took her shoes, all of them. Every pair in the house. He took her jacket. He took the key to the backyard gate. He installed a padlock on the bedroom door from the outside. You had your chance. You chose wrong. That night, he made a phone call on speaker, in front of Emily, deliberately. Megan's voice filled the room like poison gas. Should I tell her what we have decided? Megan asked. Go ahead. After the baby is born, Brandon is filing for full custody. His lawyer has been building a case for months. Your mental health history? Oh, wait. You do not have one? Do not worry. We have been creating one. Brandon has been documenting your paranoid episodes, your violent outbursts, your refusal to take medication. By the time we are done, no judge in Georgia will let you near that child. That is all lies, Emily said. Her voice was shaking, but she said it anyway. Brandon leaned forward. Prove it. You have no friends to testify for you, no employment history for the past year, no medical records because you have not seen a doctor in months. It is my word against yours. And I have a $2 million company, a lawyer on retainer, and a documented file of your mental instability. You have nothing. Emily, shaking. Why did you even marry me? Brandon answered without hesitation. Because Megan did not want to get married. She wanted to focus on her career. And I needed a wife. Clients trust a stable married man. My mother was asking when I would settle down. You were perfect, sweet, naive, easy to control. You looked good at company events. You served a purpose. You never loved me. Brandon almost laughed. Love. I needed a home base. Someone to cook and clean and look respectable. You filled the role. Then Megan again, casual, as commenting on the weather. Baby, just make sure that when the divorce goes through, I get the master bedroom redone. That wallpaper she picked is hideous. Brandon, looking at Emily while speaking to Megan. Whatever you want, Emily stood up. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it was steady. I want a divorce. Brandon's smile disappeared. You do not get to want anything. You have no money, no car, no job, no friends, no shoes. Where are you going to go, Emily? Your father with the bad heart who cannot handle stress? Your brother in Germany? You are not going anywhere. You're going to stay right here, keep your mouth shut, and wait until I decide what to do with you. Emily sat on the bedroom floor that night. No shoes, no phone, no money, no way out. The man who had imprisoned her planned to steal her baby and discard her like packaging. She put her hands on her belly. The baby kicked, hard, like a fist punching through the darkness. Emily whispered to herself and to her son, No, I am not done. I am not done yet. What she did not know was that Dorothy Miller had been counting the days. 2:47 in the morning. February 23rd. Emily woke to pain so sharp it took her breath away. Not the dull ache she had been feeling for days. This was different. This was a fist closing around her entire body. She gasped, clutched her belly, and felt warm liquid soak through her nightgown and spread across the sheets beneath her. Her water had broken 3 weeks early. Brandon, she screamed into the dark house. Brandon, help! The baby is coming. She rolled off the mattress, which he had finally returned to the bedroom frame weeks ago, and stumbled to the door. Unlocked tonight, she made it to the hallway, gripping the wall for support. A contraction hit at the top of the stairs, and she doubled over, her fingers white on the banister, her body trying to tear itself apart. When it passed, she made it downstairs. A light was on in the living room. Brandon was there, sitting on the couch, fully dressed at 2 in the morning, slacks, button-down shirt, shoes. Like he was going somewhere, or had just gotten home. His phone was on the coffee table. On speaker, Megan's voice filled the room. I do not care what you promised, Brandon. You said you would be here tonight. You said we would go to Hilton Head this weekend. But no, you are still there playing house with... Emily appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Soaked, pale, shaking, her nightgown clung to her legs. Brandon, I am in labor. We need to go to the hospital. Now. Brandon looked at her, then looked at his phone. Megan's voice. Is that her? Yeah. She says she is in labor. Is she really? Or is she being dramatic for attention? Emily doubled over. A contraction ripped through her, and she screamed. The sound filled the house. Raw and animal and unmistakable. No one could fake that sound. No one would choose to make that sound. Brandon, please. Something is wrong. The contractions are too close together. We need to go now. Megan's voice came through the speaker, cold and clear, like a verdict being read. If you take her to that hospital, if that baby is born, and you are there for it, I am done with you. Done. I will walk away, and you will never see me again. Brandon sat still for a long moment. His eyes moved between Emily and the phone. His wife, soaked in amniotic fluid, doubled over in labor, and the voice of the woman he had chosen over her. I know, he said to Megan. I mean it, Brandon. It is me or her. Choose. Brandon stood up. Emily felt a surge of desperate hope. He was standing. He was going to help. He was going to take her to the hospital, and this nightmare would end, and their son would be born in a clean room with doctors and nurses and warmth and light. He walked past her, toward the garage. Where are you going? He did not answer. She heard sounds through the open garage door, metal scraping against concrete, something heavy being dragged across the floor. Then she saw it, through the doorway, the cage, in the center of the garage floor, door open, padlock hanging from the latch. No. The word came out of her mouth before her brain could form it. Pure reflex. Pure horror. No. No, Brandon, no. Please, no. He came toward her. She grabbed the doorframe and held on. He pried her fingers off one by one. She kicked. He was stronger. She scratched his face, fingernails raking down his left cheek, drawing 3 parallel lines of blood. He slammed her against the wall, and her vision went white. When it cleared, she was being pushed toward the cage. She fought. Even in labor, even with contractions tearing through her body, she fought. She grabbed at the walls, the shelving units, anything she could reach. You can lock me in that cage, Brandon, but my brother will find out. The police will find out. You will not get away with this. Your brother is 6,000 miles away. Nobody is coming, Emily. Nobody has ever been coming. You are alone. He shoved her into the cage. Her hands hit cold metal. Her knees hit cold metal. A contraction seized her body, and she screamed so loud the sound seemed to crack the air. The cage door slammed shut. The padlock clicked. Then Brandon did something that would haunt every person who later saw the evidence. He took out his phone, opened the camera, and took photographs. Emily in the cage, soaked in blood and fluid. Screaming, pregnant, terrified, he took them from different angles, the flash blinding her each time. What are you doing? Megan wanted proof. He typed a message. Hit send. His phone buzzed with a response. He looked at the screen and smiled. Then he turned the phone toward Emily so she could read it. Megan's text. Good. Let her suffer. She deserves it for trapping you. Below that, I love you, baby. Come to my place when you are done. Brandon typed back. On my way. Love you too. He looked at Emily one last time. She was on her hands and knees in a dog cage, in labor, bleeding, gripping the bars with white knuckles. He looked at her the way you look at furniture. You are planning to throw away. You are not ruining my life tonight. He hit the light switch. The garage went black. She heard his footsteps cross the floor, the door closing, the lock clicking. Then his car starting. The garage door remained closed. The engine sound faded as he backed out of the driveway. Then nothing. Darkness, cold metal, pain, and the sound of her own breathing echoing off concrete walls. Emily Hartwell was alone. In the darkness, time lost all meaning. There was only the rhythm of contractions and the cold metal beneath her hands, and the voice she forced herself to keep using because if she stopped talking, she was afraid she would stop everything. She talked to Elijah. Listen to me, baby. Your Uncle Ryan, he is the strongest man I have ever known. Not just physically strong in the way that matters. He kept his promise to our mama. He kept every promise he ever made to me. And if I know anything about this world, it is that Ryan Hartwell will find us. I do not know how, and I do not know when, but he will find us. A contraction hit, and she screamed, and the scream turned into a sob, and the sob turned into a growl, and she gripped the cage bars and bore down because her body was telling her to push, and she could not stop it. Not yet. Not yet, Elijah. Hold on. Just a little longer. She took off her wedding ring. 2 carats. Princess cut. Platinum band. The ring that represented every lie Brandon Mercer had ever told. She pressed the diamond edge against the metal floor and began to scratch, letter by letter. Between contractions, in complete darkness, navigating by touch alone. Brandon did this. Tell Ryan, I love you, Elijah. She set the ring down, pressed her palms against the cold floor, closed her eyes even though it made no difference in the dark, and waited. 6:08 in the morning. Dorothy Miller's house. Dot had not seen Emily in 3 days. She had been counting. She noticed the Mercedes leaving late at night and returning in the early morning hours. She noticed the lights in the Mercer house were off at times when Emily usually had them on. She noticed the silence that had settled over the property like a held breath. 3 days. That was what Emily had said. If you do not see me for more than 2 days. Dot went to her kitchen drawer. Found the note she had kept since the day Emily handed her those cookies. Unfolded it. Read the phone number. Read the one sentence underneath. My husband is holding me prisoner. Dot picked up her phone and dialed. Grafenwohr, Germany. 12:08 in the afternoon local time. Ryan Hartwell was walking across the base toward the mess hall when his phone rang. Atlanta area code. Unknown number. He almost did not answer. He was tired, he was hungry, and unknown numbers from back home usually meant spam. Something made him answer anyway. Hello? Is this Ryan, Emily's brother? Who is this? My name is Dorothy Miller. I live next door to your sister. She told me to call you if she disappeared. I have not seen her in 3 days. Something is very wrong at that house. Ryan stopped walking. The mess hall, the base, the soldiers passing by, all of it disappeared. His world narrowed to the voice on the phone, and the cold terror spreading through his chest. Tell me everything. Dot told him what she knew, the locked doors, Emily's appearance, when she had whispered through the fence, thin and hollow-eyed and desperate. The note, the phone number, the fear in Emily's voice when she said, "Do not call the police because he will hurt me before they get here." Ryan listened. His training took over. He was not a panicked brother in that moment. He was a soldier, processing intelligence, assessing threat levels, forming a plan. He hung up and called his commanding officer. Sir, I need emergency family leave effective immediately. Hartwell, I need documentation. Red Cross message, medical verification. You know the protocol. Sir, my sister might be dead by morning. Court-martial me later. He booked the next available flight, Frankfurt to Atlanta, 11 hours. He would land at 10:45 at night, Eastern Time. That was too long. Anything could happen in 11 hours. He called the Atlanta Police Department from the airport terminal and requested a welfare check. 2 officers responded to the Mercer residence at Meadowbrook Heights. They knocked on the front door. Brandon answered, freshly showered, wearing a clean polo shirt and khakis. He had concealer on his left cheek, covering the scratch marks from Emily's fingernails. Officers, how can I help you? We received a call requesting a welfare check on Emily Mercer. My wife? She is visiting family down in Macon. Has been for a few days. Her father has not been feeling well. I can give you his number if you would like to verify. One of the officers, a woman named Rodriguez, looked past Brandon into the house. Clean, quiet, well-maintained, nothing visibly wrong, but something in Brandon's posture caught her attention. He was standing in the doorway at an angle that blocked any view of the interior beyond the foyer. His body language was open and friendly from the waist up. Below the waist, his feet were planted, like a man prepared to prevent entry. Rodriguez noted the Ring doorbell camera above the door. She knew those systems kept footage. She made a mental note. The officers left. Brandon closed the door, but Rodriguez sat in her patrol car for an extra 2 minutes writing her report. She noted the Ring camera. She noted that the husband had not offered to let them inside. She noted that the husband had scratch marks on his face that he had attempted to conceal with makeup. She submitted the report and flagged it for follow-up. 11 hours later, 10:47 in the evening, Eastern Time, Ryan Hartwell walked off the plane at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. He had not slept. He had not eaten. He had spent 11 hours in a middle seat staring at the back of the headrest in front of him, running scenarios, calculating response times, and praying for the first time since their mother's funeral. He picked up a rental car, a gray Chevrolet Impala, drove north toward Meadowbrook Heights, 70 miles per hour on the highway, 90 when the road cleared. His hands were steady on the wheel because shaking hands do not save lives. He arrived at 1:14 in the morning, February 24th. The house was dark. Brandon's Mercedes was in the driveway. He had come home at some point during the day. Ryan parked on the street. He got out, walked to the front door, locked. He went around the side of the house. The side gate was solid wood, 6 feet tall, latched from the inside. He stopped, listened. The neighborhood was quiet. 2 in the morning quiet. The kind of silence that makes every small sound enormous. He heard something, faint, muffled by walls and insulation and the garage door between them, but unmistakable. A woman screaming. Every hair on Ryan's body stood up. "Emily!" he shouted into the darkness. "Emily, where are you?" A voice came back. Wrecked, barely human, but alive. "Ryan? Ryan! I am in the garage, please! Oh God, please help me!" He hit the side gate at a dead run. 1 kick, 2 kicks. The wood splintered. 3 kicks, and the gate flew open. He crashed through the backyard, past the oak tree, past the blind spot where Emily had whispered through the fence, and reached the door from the yard to the garage. 1 kick. The frame cracked. 2 kicks. 3 kicks. The door burst inward, and motion sensor security lights flooded the garage with harsh white light. And Ryan saw it. His sister, in a dog cage, on her hands and knees, in a pool of blood, in active labor, gripping the metal bars with hands so white the knuckles looked like bone. Her wedding ring was gone. Her ring finger was raw and bloody from hours of scratching metal. She was barely conscious, but she was holding us on. Ryan. Her voice was almost gone. "The baby is coming. Right now." Ryan dropped to his knees beside the cage, grabbed the bars, pulled. The padlock held. He looked around the garage. Tool wall, bolt cutters hanging from a hook. He grabbed them, positioned the blades around the padlock shank, and squeezed with everything he had. The lock snapped. The cage door swung open. He reached inside and lifted his sister out. Carefully, gently. The way you lift something infinitely precious and infinitely fragile. He laid her on the garage floor and pulled off his jacket and folded it under her head. "I have got you. I have got you, Em. You are safe. I am here. You are safe." He called 911 with one hand while holding Emily's hand with the other. "This is Staff Sergeant Ryan Hartwell, United States Army. I need an ambulance at 2314 Meadowbrook Lane immediately. My sister is in active labor. She has been locked in a cage. Heavy bleeding, possible complications. I also need police. This is a crime scene." The dispatcher said paramedics were 7 minutes out. 7 minutes was too long. "Is the baby crowning?" the dispatcher asked. Ryan looked. His face went white. Yes, yes, the baby is crowning. Okay, sir, I am going to walk you through this. I need you to support the head gently. Do not pull. Let the mother's body do the work. On the next contraction, I need her to push. Ryan Hartwell had held dying men in combat zones. He had performed emergency field care under fire with bullets hitting the wall 6 inches from his head. He had pulled shrapnel from a soldier's leg with a pair of pliers and a flashlight held between his teeth. None of that had prepared him for this. He positioned his hands, steady, because shaking hands do not save lives. Push, Em. One more push. You can do this. I am right here. Emily pushed, with everything she had left, everything she had survived. 12 months of isolation and degradation, and fear and hunger and cold and violence and locked doors and sealed windows and a cage. She pushed through all of it. And then, the most beautiful sound in the world, a baby crying. It is a boy, Ryan said. His voice broke on the last word, and he did not try to stop it. Emily, it is a boy. He is here. He is perfect. Ryan wrapped the baby in his jacket, placed him on Emily's chest, skin to skin. The baby stopped crying almost immediately, found his mother's heartbeat, and went quiet. Emily held her son. She was crying and laughing at the same time. She was barely alive, but absolutely alive. Elijah. His name is Elijah. It is perfect, Ryan said. You came. Of course I came. I told you. You call, I come. I will always come. Sirens in the distance, getting closer. Then the front door opened. Footsteps through the house. Brandon's voice, casual, annoyed. Emily, you better have quieted down. I do not want to hear. He appeared in the garage doorway, saw the broken lock, the open cage, Emily on the floor holding a newborn, Ryan standing over them, blood on the concrete. Paramedic sirens getting louder. His face went white. Who the hell are you? Ryan stood up slowly. He was 6'2" and 210 pounds, and every ounce of it was coiled like a spring. He looked at Brandon Mercer the way a man looks at something he has to decide whether to kill or contain. I am her brother, and I just delivered my nephew on the floor of your garage because you locked my sister in a dog cage while she was in labor. So I am going to tell you something. One time, and you are going to listen very carefully. Brandon started to speak. Some rehearsed excuse, some calculated explanation that would sound reasonable to anyone who had not seen what Ryan had seen. Ryan did not let him finish. I was not asking you a question. I was giving you a warning. Do not move, do not speak, do not even breathe too loud. Because right now, the only thing stopping me from putting you through that wall is the fact that my sister needs me more than I need to hurt you. And believe me when I tell you that is the only thing stopping me. Red and blue lights flashed through the garage windows. Sirens right outside. Brandon's eyes darted toward the interior door. Calculating. Could he explain this? Could he charm his way out? Could he call his lawyer before the police? Officer Rodriguez came through the backyard entrance, the same officer who had done the welfare check. The same officer who had noticed the scratch marks on Brandon's face and the blocked doorway and the ring camera. She had seen the 911 call come in for this address and had responded personally. She took in the scene in 3 seconds. The cage, the blood, the padlock, the newborn, the scratched message on the cage floor that was now visible in the light. Sir, Rodriguez said to Brandon, put your hands where I can see them. This is my house. She is my wife. This is a domestic. Put your hands where I can see them. Now, Brandon Mercer was handcuffed. Read his rights, walked out of the garage, past his Mercedes, past his manicured lawn, past the Ring doorbell that had recorded him leaving at 3 in the morning, and returning at 5:45. Neighbors stood on their porches in bathrobes, watching. The neighborhood, where everything always looked perfect from the outside, was seeing what had been hidden behind one of those perfect doors. The paramedics loaded Emily and Elijah into the ambulance. Ryan climbed in beside them, held Emily's hand. The doors closed. The last thing Emily saw through the ambulance windows was Brandon Mercer in handcuffs, screaming at the officers, fighting against the restraints, his face twisted into something that was finally, honestly, the thing he had always been underneath the suits and smiles. Then the doors closed, and the ambulance pulled away, and Emily looked down at her son on her chest, and then up at her brother beside her, and she said 4 words. "We are going to be okay." Ryan squeezed her hand. "We are going to be okay." The next 72 hours were a blur of hospital rooms and police officers and paperwork and the steady, relentless sound of machines monitoring 2 patients who had come within minutes of dying. Emily was stabilized with blood transfusions and treatment for lacerations and dehydration and malnutrition and hypothermia. The doctors cataloged her injuries with the grim efficiency of people who had seen this before and never got used to it. Bruises in various stages of healing. Muscle atrophy consistent with prolonged confinement, vitamin deficiencies, weight loss, signs of chronic stress that had aged her body by a decade. Baby Elijah was healthy, 6 pounds 4 ounces, all tests perfect, 10 fingers, 10 toes, strong lungs, bright eyes, born on a concrete floor in a cage but arriving in the world as fierce and determined as the woman who brought him into it. Ryan did not leave the hospital. He slept in the recliner beside Emily's bed, ate cafeteria food, stood guard at the door, and politely refused entry to anyone who did not have a badge or a stethoscope. On day 2, District Attorney Christine Aldridge visited. She was in her 40s, sharp and professional, with a personal connection to domestic violence cases that she did not usually share, but that drove every decision she made. Her sister had survived an abusive marriage. Barely. Aldridge sat beside Emily's bed and laid out the evidence the police had collected. The cameras. Brandon had installed a security system with automatic cloud backup on a schedule he had set up years ago and apparently forgotten about. He had deleted the local footage from the night he locked Emily in the cage, but the cloud backup was on a separate server, on an automatic upload cycle, and it had captured everything. Brandon dragging Emily through the garage, shoving her into the cage, locking the padlock, taking photographs, turning off the lights, walking away, time-stamped, high definition, clear as day. The text messages. Brandon's phone contained every message between him and Megan Cross going back 3 years. Every lie, every plan, every cruel joke at Emily's expense, and the photographs. The photos he took of Emily in the cage and sent to Megan like trophies. And Megan's response? Good. Let her suffer. She deserves it for trapping you. The scratched message. Crime scene investigators photographed the floor of the cage, letter by letter, scratched into heavy gauge steel with a diamond wedding ring. Brandon did this. Tell Ryan, I love you, Elijah. The CSI technician who photographed it had been on the job for 20 years. She had processed homicides and arsons and every kind of crime scene the city of Atlanta could produce. She cried. Jess Patterson's journal. 18 months of documentation. Every blocked call with the date and time. Every unanswered text. Every visit to the house that was turned away. The journal was 62 pages long, and it read like a slow-motion horror story. An entire friendship being dismantled entry by entry. Dorothy Miller's testimony. The fence conversations. The note under the cookie tray. The phone call to Ryan, a 68-year-old grandmother who had been Emily's only lifeline and who had counted the days exactly as Emily had asked her to. Officer Rodriguez's report, the welfare check, the scratch marks on Brandon's face, the Ring doorbell footage showing him leaving at 3 in the morning, the note she had flagged for follow-up. And then there was Megan Cross. Police brought her in for questioning 2 days after Brandon's arrest. She arrived with a lawyer. She was defiant, composed, denied any wrongdoing. I had no idea what was happening in that house. Brandon told me his wife had emotional problems. I believed him. I am a victim of his lies, just like she is. The detective across the table nodded, slid Brandon's phone across the table, opened to a text thread, not the text with Emily, not the cage photos, not Megan's response to those photos. Something else entirely. Text messages between Brandon and a woman named Tasha Kincaid, going back 8 months, the same language, the same promises, the same lies. Baby, you are the only one I love. Megan means nothing to me. She is just convenient, a placeholder. But you are everything. Megan stared at the screen. The color drained from her face in real time, like watching a sunset in reverse. That is not. He told me I was the only one. There are messages here, going back to last June, the detective said. He told this woman the exact same things he told you. Word for word. Megan's composure shattered. She had been special. She had been the one, the love of his life, the woman Brandon would eventually leave his wife for. 3 years of her life invested in that belief. She was not special. She had never been special. She was just another version of Emily. Manipulated, lied to, used. The only difference was that Megan had helped destroy another woman based on those lies, had encouraged a man to lock his pregnant wife in a cage, had texted, "Let her suffer," while Emily hemorrhaged on a concrete floor. And the earring, the gold hoop Emily had found in the guest bedroom nightstand months ago. It was Tasha's. From a night she had spent in the Mercer house while Emily was locked in the bedroom 12 feet above her. Megan broke. Full cooperation. She told the police everything. The affair timeline, Brandon's plans for custody, the fabricated mental health records, how she had encouraged him to keep Emily under control, the photos she had received and saved and responded to with words that would haunt her for the rest of her life. 6 months later, the trial began. It lasted 2 weeks. The prosecution called 23 witnesses. The evidence was presented methodically, each piece building on the last like bricks in a wall that Brandon's defense team could not penetrate. The garage footage was played for the jury. The courtroom went silent. Several jurors cried. One had to leave the room. The text messages were read aloud. The jury's faces hardened. Emily's medical records were entered into evidence. 14 pages documenting injuries consistent with prolonged physical abuse and imprisonment. The scratched message was projected onto a screen. A photograph 4 feet wide of steel scratched by diamond in darkness. Brandon did this. Tell Ryan, I love you, Elijah. A juror in the front row covered her mouth with both hands. Jess Patterson took the stand and read from her journal. 18 months, 62 pages, the slow erasure of a woman's entire existence. Dorothy Miller testified, small and silver-haired and fierce. She described the whispered conversation at the fence, the cookies, the note, the phone call to Ryan when the count reached 3 days. Ryan testified about delivering his nephew on a garage floor, about the bolt cutters and the padlock, and the moment the cage door swung open. His voice broke twice. Voice broke. He did not apologize for it. Emily testified for 2 days. She was calm. She was clear. She did not cry. She described every month of her imprisonment with the precision of someone who had spent a long time making sure she remembered every detail. When asked about Brandon, She said something that the courtroom would not forget. I pity him, because he had a woman who truly loved him, who would have done anything for him, and he threw it away because he valued control more than love. He does not know what love is. His mother made sure of that. And now he has nothing. The defense argued misunderstanding, mental health crisis. Taken out of context, the jury deliberated 4 hours. Guilty. Attempted murder. Guilty. False imprisonment. Guilty. Domestic battery. Guilty. Child endangerment. Guilty. Brandon Mercer was sentenced to 28 years. No parole eligibility before 20. Megan Cross pleaded guilty to conspiracy and accessory charges. She received 5 years. Brandon showed no emotion at sentencing. He stared straight ahead, like a man watching a movie about someone else's life. Emily watched from the gallery, Ryan beside her, Elijah on her lap. She did not feel triumph. She did not feel joy. She felt something quieter than that, something that felt like the first deep breath after years of holding your lungs tight. It felt like freedom. 1 year later, Emily Hartwell sat in the kitchen of her new apartment, a 2-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood far from Meadowbrook Heights, and read the document that had just arrived by certified mail. A legal filing, petition for grandparent visitation rights, filed by Catherine Mercer, not Brandon, Catherine. She had hired an expensive attorney. Her argument was simple and sympathetic. My son made terrible mistakes, but I am an innocent grandmother. I have a constitutional right to know my grandson. I have never harmed this child or his mother. Emily called Christine Aldridge. Can she do this? Under Georgia law, grandparents can petition for visitation if they can demonstrate a pre-existing relationship or if denial of visitation would harm the child. She has legal standing to try. She is not innocent. She told me to stop provoking Brandon. She called him and told him I reached out for help. She is the reason he took my phone permanently. I know. And we will argue that. But she has hired top attorneys, Emily. This is not going to be easy. The same week, a letter arrived from Georgia State Prison. Brandon's handwriting. You think you won? You think this is over? That boy has my blood, my name, my DNA. You can put me in prison, but you cannot erase me from him. I will be in your life forever. Every birthday, every school play, every holiday, you will have to explain to him why his father is in prison. And when he is old enough, I will tell him my version. Let us see who he believes. My mother will make sure I stay connected to that boy. You will never be free of me, Emily. Never. Emily put the letter down on the kitchen table, looked at Elijah on the floor, playing with colored blocks, babbling to himself in the nonsensical language of a 1-year-old who had no idea that anyone in the world wished him harm. She picked up the phone. Christine, I am ready to fight. Family court. 6 weeks later. Catherine Mercer sat across the courtroom, dressed immaculately, pearls, pressed suit, the picture of a respectable grandmother. She dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief at appropriate moments. She spoke softly about her desire to know her grandson. Emily's team presented their case. Phone records showing that Catherine called Brandon immediately after Emily's desperate plea for help. The call that led directly to Emily losing her phone permanently. The call that sealed the last exit, Catherine's own words, given under oath when questioned about the phone call. Every marriage has rough patches. A wife's job is to make her husband's life easier, not harder. A trauma specialist named Dr. Sharon Miles, who testified that Catherine's behavior constituted enabling, not passive ignorance, but active participation in a system of control that had nearly resulted in Emily's death. Emily made a closing statement. She stood before the judge and spoke clearly and without notes. Catherine Mercer told me to stop provoking my husband while he was starving me. She called him to report that I had asked for help. She watched her son become a monster and told herself it was normal because the same thing happened to her and she survived it, and so she decided everyone should. She is not a neutral grandmother. She is part of the system that nearly killed me and my son. Elijah deserves a family that protects him, not one that taught his father that love means ownership. The judge denied Catherine's petition. No visitation, no contact. Catherine sat in the courtroom as the ruling was read. Her face crumbled. And for one moment, Emily almost felt sorry for her. Because Catherine Mercer was not evil. She was broken. A woman who had endured the same kind of abuse from Brandon's father and convinced herself it was love. A woman who raised a monster because she did not know she was one. But sympathy does not mean access, and forgiveness does not mean opening the door. Emily walked out of the courthouse into the afternoon sun. Ryan was waiting on the steps, Elijah on his shoulders, grabbing at Ryan's ears and laughing. "It is over?" Ryan asked. "It is over. All of it. Completely. 2 years after the cage. Brandon Mercer is serving year 2 of a 28-year sentence at Georgia State Prison. His logistics company collapsed after the trial. His partners pulled out. His assets were seized to pay Emily's civil lawsuit. He sits in a cell that is approximately 4 feet by 8 feet, not much bigger than the cage he put Emily in. The irony is not lost on anyone. He will die in prison 14 years later of a heart attack. Emily will not attend the funeral. Neither will Catherine. Megan Cross was released after 3 years for good behavior. She moved to a different state, changed her name, disappeared from public life. One night, 2 years after her release, an anonymous post appeared on a domestic violence survivor's online forum. "I helped a man destroy his wife. I told myself she deserved it. I told myself I was different. I was not. She did not deserve any of it. And I have to live with that for the rest of my life." Emily read the post one night while scrolling through the forum. She did not know it was Megan. Catherine Mercer, after the petition was denied, retreated into silence. 3 years after the trial, she wrote Emily a letter. "I am sorry. I failed you. I failed my son. I failed myself. I told you to endure what I endured because I could not admit that my own life was a lie. I do not expect forgiveness. I just need you to know that I know." Emily read the letter. She cried. She did not respond, not because she was cruel, but because she understood that forgiveness does not require reopening the door to people who helped build the cage. Jess Patterson reconnected with Emily the day after the rescue and never left again. She became the volunteer coordinator at a place called Elijah's Promise. Her journal, the one she had kept for 18 months, the one that documented the slow disappearance of her best friend, is now used in training materials for domestic violence advocates. It teaches them how to document when a friend disappears, how to keep records, how to be the kind of person who refuses to accept the answer "I am okay" when the eyes say the opposite. Dorothy Miller became Elijah's honorary grandmother. Grammy Dot. Every Sunday, she brings an apple pie to Emily's house, a small 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood where the doors have regular locks and the windows open easily and no one monitors the cameras. Elijah called her Grammy Dot before he called almost anyone else by name. Staff Sergeant Ryan Hartwell finished his service after 15 years, moved to a house 10 minutes from Emily's, became the father figure Elijah would need, teaches him to throw a football, to change a tire, to be kind to animals and respectful to everyone and strong in the way that matters. One rule above all others: real men protect. They never control. and Emily. Emily Hartwell stands in the lobby of Elijah's Promise, the nonprofit resource center she founded for pregnant women in abusive relationships, emergency housing upstairs, medical clinic, legal aid, therapy services, and a children's playroom downstairs. Funded by donations and a federal grant, she applied for herself, writing the application at her kitchen table the same way she once wrote the grant for Riverside Elementary's reading program. With love, with purpose, with the bone-deep understanding that words on a page can change lives. A young woman walks through the door, pregnant, bruised, terrified, looking around the lobby the way a trapped animal looks at an open cage door, not quite believing it is real. Emily walks to her, smiles. Not the broken smile of a woman pretending to be okay. The real smile of someone who survived the unsurvivable and came out the other side. Hi, I am Emily. You are safe here. I did not know where else to go. You came to the right place. I know exactly what you are going through, because someone helped me once, and now it is my turn. She leads the young woman inside, glances back through the lobby window. Ryan is outside with Elijah, now 2.5 years old, on his shoulder. Grammy Dot is getting out of her car with a pie. Jess is inside setting up chairs in the community room, laughing at something on her phone. Emily looks at her family. Not the family she was born into, though they are there. Not the family she married into, which tried to destroy her. The family she built from the wreckage, assembled from loyalty and courage, and a tray of cookies with a note taped to the bottom. She thinks about the woman she was, the woman in the cage, scratching letters into metal with a diamond ring in the dark. And she thinks about the woman she is now, standing in the light, holding the door open for someone who needs it. People ask me how I survived. Emily says to no one in particular, to everyone, to the story itself. I tell them the truth. I did not survive because I was brave. I survived because on the worst night of my life, locked in a cage, bleeding in the dark, I made my son a promise. And I do not break my promises. Not anymore. Not ever again. She walks back inside. The door stays open. It will always stay open. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.